Now, if you know both Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni and their efforts that they are performing with Star Wars right now, you will know that they're probably the only hope that we really have about where Star Wars is going in a more positive path against what Kathleen Kennedy's treatment of Star Wars is with the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. And let's get right into exactly what's going on with Jon Favreau, Disney, and Lucasfilm, and why it poses a great threat against a big, massive project that is still slated for 2025 as we speak, and a lot more connected to all of that. Now, one thing about Lucasfilm right now is that they are going through a rough patch with the Dial of Destiny, and those box office results that are coming in day by day as they inch closer to the release date of Mission Impossible 7. Disney CEO Bob Iger is growing even all the more worried. But focusing on Favreau here, we know that Mando Season 4 and Ahsoka Season 1 are basically Favreau and Filoni's saving grace, if it even is one, to really turn Star Wars around for the better and to really kickstart that momentum again for the franchise and for the fandom. But there lies a problem behind the scenes, and something that Disney CEO actually gave a go-ahead with that's causing a lot more trouble for Jon Favreau over at Lucasfilm against Disney. Let's get into all of this. Now, we know that Bob Iger has been making the wrong calls. In fact, he's made several wrong calls that have been quite catastrophic for Disney for the past couple of years now. That's really putting them in a hole that's almost, unreachable to get out of. However, with both Jon and Dave, as well, of course, others like Tony Gilroy attempting to course-correct Star Wars with Ahsoka, Mando Season 4, and Andor Season 2, there lies a recent issue that impacts creator Jon Favreau specifically at Lucasfilm. One recent development that is putting Favreau into some trouble is that Bob Iger and many members of the board have approved a plan to sharply reduce the budget of The Mandalorian Season 4 after the backlash they received for Season 3 by the fans. With Disney noticing a obvious disinterest in The Mandalorian after Season 3 was wrecked by Kathleen Kennedy, they are reportedly steering clear from their original plan of upping the budget by nearly 25%. This is described to be deeply impacting Jon's efforts on what he wanted to do with The Mandalorian Season 4, and with the budgeting constraints settling in as soon as this September. Favreau is getting very limited to what he initially wanted to do with Season 4. The plan was to make the show into a 12-episode series this time around, and that is now looking very grim, with a revert plan to go back to a short number of 8 episodes again for Season 4, much like the first 3. So let me stop here quick, because there's a lot more to it than just that we're going to be covering in just a second. Now, we know that Favreau really is a world builder, and Filoni's like the lore guy, right? And when they're combined, they can make great stuff. There's no denying the fact that Mando Season 2 was excellent. It was by far, I think, the peak of Star Wars, if you guys had to ask me, at least under Disney. To me, in my eyes, the only true big success points of Disney Star Wars is Rogue One and Mandalorian Season 2. Because Mando Season 2 was like a pinnacle moment where you had Ahsoka coming into live action for the first time, Boba Fett returning, you had Bo-Katan in live action, you had Luke coming back at the very end, and we all know that Favreau came back, of course, for Mando Season 2, specifically because he wanted to essentially redeem the character of Luke a couple of years after Rian Johnson literally just destroyed the character, down to the nub. Now, we know one other thing about this is that Favreau is planning to make Mando Season 4 very cameo-heavy, something that he wanted to do with Season 3, that Kathleen Kennedy would not allow him to do. She had this better idea of inserting celebrity cameos, and that was it. And a lot of people were very turned off about that, of having Lizzo and Jack Black as like the big cameos, so to speak, instead of, let's say, for example, a popular Star Wars character popping up and doing something very amazing. That serves the story, of course. And nobody liked the bait and switch, myself included. Nobody liked that, of how it was focusing on Din for the first 2 seasons, and then out of nowhere, it's like the Bo-Katan show. And a lot of that may have had to do with the fact that the Bo-Katan series was canceled at last minute, and so Kennedy wanted to really focus in on Bo-Katan getting that shining light in the 3rd season. But moving on, alright, there's more important stuff to go over here, is that additionally further issues facing Favreau at Lucasfilm concerning these budgeting constraints is that there will be a lack of de-aging technology to be used for certain surprise cameos that are planned. It may even result in excluding some of the planned cameos. However, for now, the plan is to put less effort into the de-aging of characters like Anakin, who is returning in flashbacks, as well as Obi-Wan Kenobi for more Order 66 scenes, as well as Clone Wars training sessions. Favreau is currently in a heated battle with Disney in an attempt to up the budget at least a little bit more from Mando Season 4 to at least reason with them to meet some of his goals that he wants to showcase to the entire fandom properly and effectively to turn Star Wars around for good. This is also impacting less sets to be built and more reliant on less sets for Mando Season 4 and more CGI work, which is causing more issues. Now, what I don't like about Bob Iger is that he feels that just because something tanks, you can't make things better. And that's not the case. If you make something so amazing, so very well effective for the fans, that they get so engaged with it, they can forget about what happened beforehand. At least, I believe that, and I think a lot of you will agree that, let's say, for example, if Mando Season 4 is off the charts, amazing, the most effective Star Wars installment in history under Disney, a lot of people would just forget about Season 3. It's kind of like what happened with, Picard. People just forget about what initially happened and they focus on the good. And so that's all they really have to do. So what Bob Iger is doing, I feel, is a very bad move. He's playing it safe again, because Season 3 failed, but you gotta remember, and he doesn't tend to understand things all the time, is that Kathleen Kennedy had creative control specifically for Season 3 that she did not have much as with Season 2. So since she had a lot more role, a lot more creative calls over the 3rd one, that's why it utterly failed. It wasn't all on John and Dave as much as we think it may have been, but it was a lot to do with Kathleen Kennedy, at least for that season. And so Bob Iger is making the biggest mistake, I believe, for Jon Favreau to properly do his job, and that is to have the budgeting required to do the things that he wants to do that's going to please fans, both visually and, of course, as far as the narrative goes, storytelling-wise. That's what Jon Favreau really kind of lives for, and that's his drive. He wants to create world-building, scenarios where you can just build upon the existing lore and creating new lore alike. So, again, this is not all that surprising coming out of Bob Iger. After all, Bob Iger did admit years ago that he made the bad call of playing things safe with the sequel trilogy, because he felt that if you made anything different, it may get a lot of hate, like how the prequels got hate back in the 1990s and the early 2000s. So he played things safe, You want to make something different, that's great. And they did try to do that with The Last Jedi, but it failed terribly because you destroyed the character of Luke, and you handed it all over to a subpar writer and director known as Rian Johnson. So anyways, guys, drop a comment below, fill me in below what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
From night to